Claire Stalker, and I am online at wisecrafthandmade.com. And today I was inspired to do a video to show some of my vintage sewing collections. I'm always intrigued by the types of ephemera or the types of things that artists keep in their studios and find inspiration in, and why they keep them, how they acquired them, things like that. So I thought today I would share my own collection, and we'll focus on Victorian era sewing notions, because those are kind of what got me into this whole collection in the first place. So a little bit of background. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in a small house. We moved here in 2020 from Seattle, Washington, and we downsized quite a bit. We got rid of a lot of things. My kids were either in college or going off to college, and I had to think really hard about what I would be bringing with me. There just wasn't a lot of extra space in our house for a lot of things that I would have to find a place for or either store. We have no basement and we have no attic, so that sort of ruled that out. And so I spent some time thinking really hard about which pieces I wanted to take with me, why I wanted to take them with me, and which pieces I was willing to part with. And this is not an easy thing for people, creative people especially, to do, because usually creative people can find an excuse or a reason or justification for keeping almost everything that catches their eye. And I was one of those people. So I had to reevaluate, and part of the things that I thought about as I was looking at my collection is it something that I feel would be interesting to have out in front of me to look at? Like, does it inspire me, and how does it inspire me? Or does it really inspire me at all? Maybe the inspiration was simply finding it at an antique store or something like that. So those are questions I had to ask myself. Now in 2024, we are in my studio inside of our house, and we added this space on. It's almost the exact same size footprint wise as the basement studio I had in Seattle. So I sort of knew how pieces of furniture and things would fit in it. But one of the things that I've realized is that living in the desert, it is extremely dusty here. And so you're going to be doing a lot of dusting if you have a lot of little things. What I decided was, when you walk into the studio from the rest of the house, I wanted there to be sort of a clean view of something interesting and pretty, because when you're making patchwork like I do, you're often, oh, my cat was in here, you're often making a lot of messes with fabric, and it's just a messy process. So I knew I wanted some sort of place in my studio where I knew that it would be sort of calming, inspiring, and pretty to look at, I guess. So that brings me to my big black cabinet. I saved my pennies and stocked this cabinet online until it went on sale in 2021, early 2021. I woke up in the morning, I got an email from Anthropologie that this cabinet was on sale, and I snatched it up right away. It took several months, I want to say 6 to 7 months to get, because during the pandemic we had a lot of delivery problems and supply chain problems. It came in a huge crate that sat in our garage until this space was actually finished construction. So I had measured everything out, measured the height, I knew the size, and I knew what I wanted to put in it. So its name is Fern, and it's got 3 shelves. This one at the bottom is marble, which is one reason why it's so heavy. And then it's got 3 drawers. So I keep a lot of supplies in these drawers. But these shelves here are almost like an evolving area of inspiration for me. And I will often change things out when the seasons change, because I really like it when I notice things. And I feel like when everything sits in here and never moves, that I stop noticing it. So maybe twice a year, I've been taking things out, sort of just wiping everything down, and then putting some things in that weren't in before, taking a few things out. But what I love about this cabinet is it has glass front doors that close, so it keeps everything dust free, which is one of the reasons why I keep my featherweight sewing machine in here. I have a case for it, but I like to see it, so I keep it out. In here, it stays clean in here, and I do use it. I use it for Zoom workshops. I use it for retreats because it's just so portable and easy to set up. So anyway, everything stays dust free. I have an assortment of vintage sewing notions in here, but I thought I would share with you some of my favorite sort of Victorian era ones to start with. So probably one of the first ones that I bought is this needle book. And I bought this on eBay. It's a silk needle book, and it ties with a ribbon. And from what I understand, the pins and needles that are in it are exactly as they were when it was acquired. So I have not moved them. I did wash it because I studied textile science when I was in college, and I know that dry rot on any sort of fabric contains bacteria and things like that that could transfer to other things. So I didn't want to bring it in my studio unless I had washed it. So the print of the floral silk fabric is a little less bright than it used to be, but I still love it a lot. And now it's clean. It's not going to mess anything up. And if you look inside, there's some really beautiful hand stitches in it. I just love that someone made this to keep their pins in and keep their sewing in. So anyway, I do not leave this out all the time. I pulled it out for today's video, but it's been in a box for a while. I might put it out for spring here in the cabinet, but I just worry about it fading. The sun is very bright here, almost as dramatic as the amount of dust that we get. One of the things that I really love about Victorian era, or maybe a little bit beyond Victorian era sewing notions, are just how special they felt, even for the most mundane things. Now, this one is a little beyond the Victorian era, but if you can see this, it's a little basket of fruit. I loved the color. I believe that this feels like some sort of Bakelite or something like that. So this may be more like in the 40s or something around that time, but it is a tape measure, if you can see that. And I love that it's just something that a sewist would use and just sit on their table when they weren't using, because it's so cute. And along those lines, I have this guy here, which is just a little, it looks like a little basket of flowers. It's very faded, but again, you could sit this on your table and it has a thimble in the middle, which I think is just really fun. And then one more that I have, another tape measure. This one's very faded. So this has some fruits in it, and the tape measure itself is pretty delicate, but super, super cute. This here is probably one of the earlier pieces that I started collecting around the same time as the needle book that I showed you. This is an ivory pincushion. My mother-in-law bought this for me. We were at a antique show or event, I believe in Albuquerque, several years before I moved here. And I kept looking at it, and she finally was like, I'd like to get that for you, Blair. And so I treasure it for that reason, but also it's ivory, which you just, for obvious reasons, do not see anymore. It's carved. It has a pincushion on top. So this is a little silk flower with green trim. It's very faded and worn, but it's got little glass head pins on the top. These are not pins that I put in it. I think it's pins that either someone else or the person that sewed put in it. And then inside the body, it has a little tape measure that you can wind and unwind with this little bar. And the bar has a little hole on one side. So I'm not sure if it was meant to be carried, like, I don't know, carried on a chatelaine or, you know, some sort of necklace. I don't know. But the tape measure itself is retracted all the way into the body of this because it came apart a little bit. I didn't want it to come apart anymore. So anyway, it's in there though. But I adore this piece. And this piece does usually stay out pretty much all the time. But it just, I love to hold it. I love to look at it. To me, these sorts of fun little things, I think one of the things that I think about when I look at these is how they just elevate sewing. Just the simple act of what we can do with our hands and a piece of cloth and a needle and thread. I just love how they feel elevated in that way, just by looking at these and thinking about the women or men who may have used them. This here is pretty worn, but I bought this here at an antique store in Santa Fe. And this is sort of a sewing scissor holder. So I'll give you an idea. Got my scissors, and they just go down like that. So you could hang that on the wall or in your little sewing area. But I do love the fact that it's a really pretty color. It's very worn out, and it feels almost like it was made from a piece of bark. So I don't know a lot about it. The people that I bought it from did not know a lot about it, but I love the beadwork and the color and just the shape of it. I think it's really super sweet. So the next two things that I'll share are not Victorian. They're probably much later than that, but they're like little mending kits, if you will. I think this one is adorable. I love his face. I believe this is German, and it feels like that material celluloid, or it could be Bakelite, but I think it's probably more like a form of plastic. But you can see his face and his little outfit. He's got a little hair on the back. And then his little hat screws off as a thimble. So you've got a thimble there. And then if you pull out what's inside, it's a little tiny bit of white thread and a little bit of black thread. And you could probably also fit a little needle in here as well. So this is inside of his little body, which I just think is so cute. So that's that one. And then along those same lines, this one to me felt more like a 40s piece where it looks almost like it could be a perfume bottle. I don't know. It's very elegant. It's very slender and elegant. But this has spools of thread inside, and the top of it seems to come off, so you could put your needles inside of that. So I do, you know, as we mend our clothes more and more, and people understand how important it is to buy once, buy well if you can, and then mend your clothes. I love the idea of having little kits like this sitting around so that when, you know, I sit down to watch TV or something like that, having maybe a modern day version of this to mend something with while I'm just sitting in the evening would be kind of fun. So I'm reminded of those sorts of things when I look at these pieces. And then the last things that I'll share today are these two cloisonne thimbles that my daughter got me for the holidays this year. So often when friends who know me well shop for me, they'll look for unique and vintage things like these little cloisonne thimbles. It's an owl, and then this is a bird. They're so pretty, and I just love the idea that my daughter shopped for those, researched them, or tried to figure out what would be a unique thing to get me, and I treasure them. I actually don't use thimbles, but I love them. I wish I could. For some reason, if I need to cover up my finger, a Band-Aid always does the trick, but maybe I will. And these are actually heavy. These are metal and they're kind of heavy, but maybe I'll give them a try. You never know. I'd like to think I'm not too old to pick up a new sewing habit by using thimbles. So that is just a glimpse into my cabinet of sewing curiosities, one of my favorite things in our house here in Santa Fe. And I would love for you to tell me about your collections, the kinds of things that inspire you inside of your creative space, and how do you display them? I worked with an organizer years ago in Seattle, wonderful KonMari trained organizer, Trisha Fiddler, and she exposed me to this idea of power space. And what that means, sort of the simplified version, is it's a space that you create with things in it that you treasure or that sort of help define you and your creativity or your power, so to speak. And then that place becomes your personal power space. And when you declare something, like I declare this cabinet as my personal power space, it elevates it in my mind. And then when I put these little things that I've collected very carefully inside of it and display them in a protected way, it sort of creates, it sort of shows off their power inside of my personal power space, if you will. So do you have a personal power space? And if you do, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. That's it for now. I would love to come back and share some more of my collections in here. If you're interested in that, let me know. And in the meantime, I hope you are well. And I look forward to hearing about your collections. Take care.